Before I read to you a disclaimer, I am not a lawyer, and none of this is legal advice. I am merely reading a publicly accessible document that is published by the state of Minnesota. There will be a link to the document in the description. Executive Order 20-20, directing Minnesotans to stay at home. I, Tim Walz, Governor of the State of Minnesota, by the authority vested in me by the Constitution and applicable statutes, issue the following executive order. The COVID-19 pandemic presents an unprecedented challenge to our state. On March 11th, 2020, the World Health Organization, WHO, characterized the COVID-19 outbreak as a pandemic. Despite the efforts to contain COVID-19, the WHO and the Centers for Disease Control, CDC, indicate that it is expected to spread. Confirmed cases of COVID-19 in Minnesota are rapidly increasing. On March 15th, 2020, Minnesota detected the first confirmed cases caused by community spread, infections not epidemiologically linked to overseas travel. By March 17th, 2020, all 50 states had reported a confirmed case of COVID-19. By March 20th, 2020, the CDC had confirmed more than 15,000 COVID-19 cases in the United States. And on March 21st, 2020, the Minnesota Department of Health, MDH, announced the first confirmed fatality due to COVID-19 in Minnesota. Community spread of COVID-19 in Minnesota and nationwide is increasing. As of March 24th, 2020, Minnesota had 287 confirmed COVID-19 cases with 35 hospitalizations. It is further expected that increased testing capacity would demonstrate that COVID-19 is circulating in communities across Minnesota that currently have not identified a confirmed case. Minnesota has already taken proactive steps to ensure that we are ahead of the curve on COVID-19 prevention and response. On March 13th, 2020, I issued Executive Order 20-01 and declared a peacetime emergency because this pandemic, an act of nature, threatens the lives of Minnesotans and local resources are inadequate to address the threat. On March 15th, 2020, I issued Executive Order 20-02 ordering the temporary closure of public schools. On March 16th, 2020, I issued Executive Order 20-04 ordering the closure of bars, restaurants, and other places of public accommodation. Recent developments, including the presence of community spread in Minnesota, the rapid increase in COVID-19 cases both globally and in Minnesota, and the first COVID-19 related death in our state, require Minnesota to take additional proactive measures to slow the spread of this pandemic. Slowing the community spread of COVID-19 is critical to ensuring that our healthcare facilities remain able to accommodate those who require intensive medical intervention. This executive order is consistent with the growing nationwide effort to contain the spread of COVID-19. On March 16, 2020, President Donald Trump issued guidelines to limit gatherings of more than 10 people. As of March 24, 2020, 24 states representing almost 200 million Americans have issued orders or public health directives closing non-essential businesses or limiting residents from participating in non-essential activities. Limiting activities to only those which are most essential and practicing social distancing at all times are vital tools required to mitigate the community spread of COVID-19 in Minnesota and nationwide. On March 23, 2020, the U.S. Department of Homeland Security issued guidance on the essential critical infrastructure workforce, ensuring community and national resilience in COVID-19 response, CISA guidance, attached to and incorporated into this executive order. The CISA guidance identifies workers who conduct a range of operations and services that are essential to continued critical infrastructure viability. This federal guidance provides a baseline for Minnesota's efforts to ensure critical infrastructure and services are maintained while slowing the spread of COVID-19. In Minnesota Statutes 2019, Section 12.02, the Minnesota legislature conferred upon the governor emergency powers in order to 1. Ensure that preparations of this state will be adequate to deal with disasters. 2. Generally protect the public peace, health, and safety. And 3. Preserve the lives and property of the people of the state. Pursuant to Minnesota Statutes 2019, Section 12.21, Subdivision 1, the governor has general authority to control the state's emergency management as well as carry out the provisions of Minnesota's Emergency Management Act. Minnesota Statutes 2019, Section 12.21, Subdivision 3-7, authorizes the governor to cooperate with federal and state agencies in matters pertaining to the emergency management of the state and nation, including the direction or control of the conduct of persons in the state, including entrance or exit from any stricken or threatened public space, occupancy of facilities, and public meetings or gatherings. Pursuant to Subdivision 3 of that same section, the governor may make, amend, and rescind the necessary orders and rules to carry out the provisions of Minnesota Statutes 2019, Chapter 12. When approved by the Executive Council and filed in the Office of the Secretary of State, such orders and rules have the force and effect of law during the peacetime emergency. Any inconsistent rules or ordinances of any agency or political subdivision of the state are suspended during the pendency of the emergency. Any person who willfully violates such an order or rule is guilty of a misdemeanor, and upon the conviction must be punished by a fine not to exceed $1,000 or by imprisonment for not more than 90 days.